Let's talk about a city with a split personality. To the rest of the world, Bangalore is India's shining tech hub, right? It's a symbol of progress. But if you look at the movies made by its own local filmmakers, you see a totally different picture. It's dark, it's dangerous, and the locals feel like complete outsiders. So today, we're diving into this paradox, a global city as seen through the lens of its very own local cinema.
I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got the Bangalore you read about in the news, the IT capital, the beacon of India's economic boom. But then you turn to the local Kannada language movies, and that image just shatters. Suddenly, it's this sinister, lawless space where the heroes, the local people, just can't seem to find their place. And the contrast is just so stark. Film scholar Raghavendra sums it up perfectly. He says that in Kannada cinema, the city is an increasingly dark and sinister space. We're not just talking about a slightly different take here. This is a complete and total rejection of that glossy global image.
So you gotta ask, right? Why would a city's own storytellers paint their booming home in such a dark, pessimistic way? Well, to figure that out, we need to zoom out a little and get some context.
First up, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla of Indian cinema, Bollywood. Because once you understand what Bollywood does, you start to see just how different and how radical Bangalore's local films really are.
You see, Bollywood and regional cinemas, they have fundamentally different jobs. Bollywood, which is in Hindi, is trying to speak to the whole nation. It's creating this imagined community. And for the most part, it's pretty pro-globalization. But regional cinemas, like the Kannada films from Bangalore, they're speaking to local people in their own language about their own concerns. And sometimes, they end up questioning the very thing Bollywood is celebrating.
Okay, so to really unlock what's going on in these movies, we need to grab onto one key idea: allegory. It's basically when a story isn't just a story. The characters and the events are actually symbols for bigger ideas, political stuff, social situations. So a hero might actually represent an entire community. A failed romance could symbolize a deep cultural clash. This is the lens we're going to use to decode these films.
All right, so with that idea of allegory in our back pocket, let's zoom in on Bangalore itself. The tensions we see on screen didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, they have really deep historical roots.
For a huge chunk of its history, there were literally two Bangalores. Back in 1807, the British set up a military cantonment that was totally separate, culturally and politically, from the old local city. Now, they officially merged in 1949, but that feeling of division, it stuck around. Then, in 1956, Bangalore becomes the capital of the brand-new Kannada-speaking state of Karnataka. But the real game changer, the thing that put all of this on hyperdrive, was the IT boom in the 90s. It just poured gasoline on these old economic and cultural divides. Now this data point is absolutely key. Even way back in 1971, native Kannada speakers were a minority in their own capital city, only 37%. Can you just imagine that feeling of being outnumbered in the place you call home? And then came the new economy. The IT boom brought in talent from all over India, and it overwhelmingly favored English speakers. Now, these are popular estimates, but the perception was incredibly powerful, that only a tiny sliver of these new high-paying jobs, maybe as low as 10%, were going to the local Kannada-speaking people. You can really start to see how a story of being marginalized could take root.
And all of this brings us right back to the movies. This feeling of being left behind, of being a stranger in your own home, it explodes onto the screen in what the source material calls a cinema of defeat. So let's look at three massively successful films that tell this exact story.
First up, we've got a huge hit from 2005, a film called Jogi.
So the story is really telling. A young guy, Madesha, moves to Bangalore from his village to find work. He gets pulled into the criminal underworld and becomes this feared gangster named Jogi. But here's the crazy part. He never gets rich. He never really becomes part of the city. He keeps his village innocence. And the film ends in tragedy, with his mother, who came to the city looking for him, dying before they can ever meet again. It's a story of having power but no reward, of being in the city but never belonging to it.
What's so interesting is the film deliberately ignores the shiny, globalized Bangalore. The author's analysis suggests it's because it's as if a Kannadiga, a native Kannada speaker, can't exist in that glamorous world. His reality has to be separate, unglamorous.
Okay, our next film from 2006 is called Duniya, which is a powerful title. It means the world. And if you thought Jogi was tragic, this story is even more bleak. A poor quarry worker, Shivalingu, ends up in the city and joins a small-time gang. He's brave, but it gets him absolutely nowhere. No status, no money. All the while, there's this cop who is just ruthlessly wiping out gangsters to maintain law and order. In the end, instead of surrendering to the authorities, Shivalingu and the woman he loves decide to take their own lives. It's just a story of complete and total defeat.
So we're seeing a pattern here, right? The heroes are poor, they're from outside the city, and their world is gritty and dangerous. But wait a minute. What happens when a film actually shows the modern, wealthy side of Bangalore? What if the hero isn't a gangster?
Well, that brings us to our third film, Mungaru Male. This was one of the biggest blockbusters in Kannada cinema history. And this one is different. It's a romance, not a crime flick.
The movie opens right in the heart of global Bangalore, a fancy shopping mall. Our hero, Preetham, is a well-off Kannadiga. He falls for a woman named Nandini, who kind of represents that cosmopolitan pan-Indian identity. They love each other. There are no class barriers, no family feuds, and yet, somehow, the relationship is just impossible. In the end, he has to sacrifice his own happiness and let her go. So even in a romance set in the modern city, the story is one of loss.
And this is where that idea of allegory just clicks into place. The author argues that the reason their love fails, the reason the gap between them is unbridgeable, isn't about them as people. It's about what they represent. The whole romance is an allegory for the social distance between the local Kannadiga identity and the new, global identity that has taken over Bangalore.
So, let's tie all of this together. These aren't just 3 random movies about unlucky guys. When you read them as allegories, they reveal this incredibly consistent and powerful message about what it feels like to be a local in a city that's rapidly globalizing.
So here's the symbolic map that starts to emerge from these films. The hero, in every case, stands for the local Kannadiga. The mother figure often represents the Kannada homeland or tradition that's being lost. The city of Bangalore itself becomes this seductress, beautiful and attractive, but ultimately treacherous. And the adversary? It's not another criminal. It's the state, the authorities, who are shown protecting the new global city, not the local people.
And that leads to this really deep, kind of chilling fear that runs through all these films. The idea that the state itself, the very system that's supposed to protect its citizens, is now so invested in protecting Bangalore's global image that it's willing to hurt or even destroy the local people it once served.
So it leaves us with this final, really provocative question. If a city's popular movies are like a window into its collective subconscious, if they show us the anxieties bubbling up where local identity meets global money, then what is global Bangalore really dreaming about, deep down beneath that glossy surface?